Iran-Iraq War human wave attacks. During the 1980s conflict between Iran and Iraq, Iranian forces became known for sending large numbers of poorly equipped volunteers, including teenagers, into heavily mined or strongly defended areas. These assaults were often described as human wave tactics, where sheer numbers were used in an attempt to break through Iraqi lines. The strategy aimed to overwhelm entrenched positions, but it resulted in extremely high casualties and long-lasting trauma among survivors. What makes this especially controversial is the reported use of young or minimally trained fighters in some of the most dangerous frontline roles, raising serious concerns about disregard for life, command responsibility, and potential violations of the laws of war. Use of child soldiers. Throughout the Iran-Iraq War, there were widespread reports that Iran recruited and deployed children, sometimes as young as early teens, in combat roles and support positions. Many were part of volunteer militias like the Basij, often motivated by ideology, religion, or social pressure. Some accounts describe children being sent ahead to clear minefields or participate directly in assaults against fortified enemy positions. International law strictly prohibits the use of child soldiers, and this practice has remained one of the most criticized aspects of Iran's wartime conduct. It continues to shape how that period is viewed by human rights organizations and historians. Execution of political prisoners in 1988. In the final phase of the Iran-Iraq War, thousands of political prisoners in Iran were reportedly executed following brief and highly secretive proceedings. Many of these individuals had already been serving sentences and were not actively engaged in conflict at the time. The executions were carried out after a directive from the leadership, targeting members of opposition groups, especially those accused of disloyalty. What makes this event especially significant is not only the scale, but also the lack of due process, legal transparency, or opportunity for defense. Human rights organizations have widely classified it as a mass extrajudicial killing with lasting political and social consequences. Targeting of civilian shipping in the Persian Gulf. During the later years of the Iran-Iraq War, Iran participated in what became known as the Tanker War, attacking oil tankers and commercial vessels in the Persian Gulf. While Iraq initiated many of these attacks, Iran responded in kind, striking ships linked to its opponents or perceived allies. These actions disrupted global trade routes, increased insurance costs, and endangered civilian crews who had no direct involvement in the conflict. Attacking civilian shipping without clear military necessity is widely considered a violation of international maritime law, and the escalation in the Gulf drew in foreign naval forces, further complicating the situation. Support for proxy militias accused of war crimes. Iran has long supported armed groups in the Middle East, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and various militias in Iraq and Syria, providing funding, weapons, and training. Some of these groups have been accused of targeting civilians, conducting unlawful detentions, or engaging in sectarian violence during conflicts. While Iran does not always directly carry out these actions itself, its role in sustaining and empowering these groups has drawn criticism from international observers. This indirect involvement raises complex legal and ethical questions about accountability, especially when support contributes to actions that may violate international humanitarian law. Crackdown on protesters. At various points, particularly during large-scale protests in 2009, 2019, and 2022, Iranian security forces have been accused of using excessive and sometimes lethal force against civilians. Reports include live ammunition being used against unarmed demonstrators, widespread arrests, internet shutdowns, and deaths occurring in custody. These actions often take place in moments of political tension, where the government seeks to maintain control. While these events occur within a domestic context rather than a battlefield, they are frequently discussed alongside war crimes due to the scale of violence and the apparent targeting of civilians without proportional response. Involvement in the Syrian civil war. Iran has played a major role in supporting the Syrian government during the ongoing conflict, providing military advisors, logistical support, and allied militia forces. Iranian-backed groups have been active in several key battles and regions across Syria. Some operations involving these forces have taken place in areas where civilian casualties were high, including densely populated cities. Critics argue that Iran's involvement has contributed to prolonged fighting, indiscriminate attacks, and sieges that severely affected civilian populations. The complexity of the war makes responsibility difficult to assign clearly, but the association remains a significant and ongoing point of international concern. Treatment of ethnic and religious minorities. Within Iran, certain minority groups, including Kurds, Baha'is, Arabs, and others, have faced long-standing allegations of discrimination, harsh treatment, and targeted repression. Reports include arrests, executions, restrictions on education and employment, and limitations on religious practice. In some cases, security operations in minority regions have involved the use of force against civilian populations during unrest. While not always classified strictly as war crimes, these actions are often discussed in the broader context of human rights violations due to their severity, consistency, and impact on vulnerable communities over time. Suppression of prison uprisings. There have been instances where prison unrest in Iran was met with forceful and sometimes lethal responses by authorities. Reports suggest that security forces used firearms, beatings, and other harsh measures to regain control during disturbances. In several cases, inmates were killed or seriously injured during these crackdowns. The use of disproportionate force in confined environments raises serious legal and ethical concerns, particularly regarding the protection of detainees under international standards. These incidents also highlight broader issues related to prison conditions and oversight. Cross-border operations against Kurdish groups. Iran has conducted military strikes against Kurdish opposition groups located in neighboring countries such as Iraq, often targeting bases near border regions. These operations have included artillery shelling, drone strikes, and missile attacks. Some of these strikes have reportedly affected nearby civilian areas, causing injuries, displacement, and damage to infrastructure. Cross-border attacks that result in civilian harm or are conducted without clear distinction between military and civilian targets are often scrutinized under international law. These actions add to the ongoing tension in border regions and contribute to concerns about escalation and civilian safety. Chemical weapons exposure incidents. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iraq widely used chemical weapons against Iranian forces, but there were also controversial situations where Iranian troops were exposed to such agents and later returned to active combat zones with limited protection or medical care. Reports suggest that some injured soldiers did not receive adequate long-term treatment or were redeployed despite serious respiratory and neurological conditions. While Iran was largely a victim of chemical warfare, the handling of exposed personnel raised ethical concerns about duty of care, especially when soldiers were knowingly placed back into hazardous environments without sufficient safeguards or recovery time. Forced confessions and show trials. In various periods, particularly after political unrest or alleged security threats, Iranian authorities have been accused of extracting forced confessions from detainees through coercive means. These confessions are sometimes broadcast publicly and later used in court proceedings that lack transparency and independent oversight. Reports from former prisoners and human rights groups describe psychological pressure, prolonged isolation, and threats against family members. What makes this significant is the use of such confessions to justify harsh sentences, including executions, raising serious questions about fairness, legality, and the integrity of the judicial process over time. Targeting of dissidents abroad. There have been multiple allegations over the years that Iranian state-linked actors have been involved in targeting political dissidents outside the country through covert operations. Some cases include assassinations or attempted attacks in Europe and other regions, often involving individuals critical of the government. These operations typically focus on opposition figures who fled Iran and continued their activism abroad. Such actions, if proven, violate international law and national sovereignty, and they contribute to tensions between Iran and other nations while raising ongoing concerns about the safety and protection of political exiles. Destruction of civilian infrastructure in conflict zones. In areas where Iranian-backed forces have operated, particularly in Syria and parts of Iraq, there have been repeated reports of damage to civilian infrastructure, including homes, markets, medical facilities, and utilities. While some destruction occurs as part of broader military campaigns, Critics argue that not all strikes clearly distinguished between military and civilian targets. Damage to essential infrastructure has long-term consequences for local populations, affecting access to water, electricity, healthcare, and shelter, and increasing the humanitarian impact of already complex and prolonged conflicts.